Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into some pretty mind-blowing stuff today, talking about Ray Kurzweil and his book, The Singularity Is Nearer.
Oh, this is a good one.
We're going to try to unpack some of his predictions about AI,
Right.
how fast technology is evolving,
Yeah.
and what it all means for the future of, well, humanity.
Kurzweil's really interesting because he's not just some, futurist, throwing out crazy ideas. He really grounds all this stuff in a deep understanding of technology.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the guy who gave us the first print-to-speech reading machine, the flatbed scanner.
Right.
I mean, we take that stuff for granted now, but
Yeah.
back then that was like dot magic.
Totally.
So when Kurzweil says big changes are coming, he's like, okay, well, we should probably pay attention.
Yeah, definitely.
And the biggest change he predicts is something called the singularity.
Okay.
So picture this. AI gets so advanced that it becomes smarter than humans.
Wow.
That moment, that tipping point, that's the singularity.
Okay.
And he argues it's not some distant event. It's something that we are rapidly moving towards, even as we speak.
And this is where it gets really interesting because
Okay.
he bases this prediction on this idea of exponential growth, which he calls the law of accelerating returns.
Okay, so the law of accelerating returns, LOAR for short.
Right.
What's so special about exponential growth? Break it down for us.
Well, think about it this way. Our brains are kind of hardwired to think linearly. Like, if you take one step and then you take another step, you'd expect to be 2 meters away from where you started, right? But with exponential growth, it's different. It's like that old story about the chessboard and the grains of rice.
Oh, yeah. Where you start with 1 grain of rice on the first square of the chessboard, then 2, and then 4?
Exactly. It seems slow at first, but it quickly spirals out of control into this massive number of grains.
Right. It's like, whoa.
And Kurzweil argues that technology follows this same exponential path. A classic example is Moore's law, which states that the number of transistors on a microchip doubles roughly every 2 years.
And that's why we've gone from those like room-sized computers to smartphones more powerful than supercomputers from the past.
Exactly, yeah. And it's not just about faster computers or smaller phones. Kurzweil argues that this law is evident across many fields. Take genome sequencing, for example.
Yeah.
The Human Genome Project took over a decade and billions of dollars to complete, and now we can sequence a genome in a matter of days for a few $1,000s.
Okay, so we've got technology evolving at warp speed, but how does this actually lead to AI becoming more intelligent?
Right.
And that's where this thing called the Turing test comes in, right?
Exactly. The Turing test is kind of like a benchmark for measuring whether a machine can exhibit human-like intelligence. So imagine you're having a conversation with somebody like through a computer, and you can't tell if you're talking to a human or a machine.
Right.
That's what passing the Turing test would be.
And Kurzweil predicted back in 1999 that AI would pass this Turing test by 2029. I mean, that seemed like a pretty bold claim back then.
You did, yeah.
But now it seems like experts are saying he might have been a little too conservative with that prediction.
Yeah, I think so too.
Especially with AI now doing things that used to be considered uniquely human. I mean, look at how it's mastering these incredibly complex games.
Absolutely. You look at the ancient game of Go, for example.
Yeah.
It's a game of strategy and intuition, and for years people thought it was too complex for a machine to master, but then came along AlphaGo, developed by Google DeepMind, and it defeated a world champion Go player.
Right.
And then there's Jeopardy! IBM's Watson supercomputer went up against former champions and won.
So we're seeing AI conquer these incredibly complex games, but what about more practical applications?
Well, AI is also rapidly becoming a game changer in fields like medicine. For example, in radiology, it's helping doctors detect diseases like cancer earlier and more accurately.
Wow.
And in drug discovery, AI is sifting through massive amounts of data to identify potential new drugs and therapies much faster than humans ever could.
So it's making these inroads in these incredibly complex and important fields, but how is it actually becoming so smart? What's the secret sauce?
A lot of it comes down to something called deep learning, and more specifically, these artificial neural networks.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. This idea of teaching machines to think like humans, right?
In a way, yeah. You see, traditional computer programs are based on explicit rules.
Right.
But with deep learning, it's different. It's all about feeding massive amounts of data into these artificial neural networks. And these networks, they're actually inspired by the structure of the human brain.
Okay. So instead of programming a computer with specific rules for, say, recognizing a cat, you essentially just show it thousands of pictures of cats and the computer learns to recognize the patterns on its own.
Exactly. And as these networks process more and more data, they just get better and better at their tasks, very much like humans learn from experience.
So it's like we're teaching these machines to learn the way we do, but on a much grander scale.
Precisely. And this is actually where Kurzweil draws a parallel between these artificial neural networks and the human brain.
Okay.
He talks about the cerebellum and the part of our brain that handles, skills and reflexes.
Right.
And then there's the neocortex, which is responsible for our higher level thinking, learning, problem solving. Kurzweil suggests that these deep learning systems, with their complex layers and connections, are starting to mirror the functions of the neocortex.
Wow. So it's like we're taking the training wheels off of AI, essentially.
Yeah.
We're giving them the tools to learn and adapt on their own.
Exactly.
And I think a mind-blowing example of this is AlphaGo Zero.
Definitely. Unlike its predecessor, AlphaGo, which actually learned by analyzing millions of human games, AlphaGo Zero taught itself to play Go entirely from scratch.
Wow.
Just by playing against itself millions of times. It's like it developed its own intuition about the game.
And it actually ended up surpassing even the best human Go players in the world.
It's amazing, really.
Okay, so AI is getting crazy smart, crazy fast. But what does this actually mean for us humans? I mean, is this singularity going to be like some Hollywood blockbuster with, robots taking over?
Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And Kurzweil actually spends a lot of time addressing this very fear.
Okay.
He argues that, instead of fearing the future, we should be excited about the possibilities.
Okay, hold on. Easy to say when you're a tech guru, but it feels like things are kind of messy right now.
I hear you, yeah. And it's true, we're bombarded with negative news all the time.
Yeah?
But Kurzweil, he argues that this negativity bias, it's actually hardwired into us.
Negativity bias, what's that?
Well, think about it this way. You know how you might look back on, say, your school days with, rose-tinted glasses? You remember the fun times, the friends you made. You kind of forget about the awkward moments, the exams you stressed over.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's negativity bias in action. Our brains, they tend to filter out the bad stuff and just focus on the positive, even when, objectively, times were tougher.
Oh.
Kurzweil actually calls it the fading negative affect bias.
Okay.
And he says, because of this, we often have this skewed perception of the past, and that colors how we see the present and the future.
So you're saying things aren't as bad as they seem?
Not necessarily, no, but it's really important to consider the bigger picture. If you look at the actual data, things have actually been steadily improving in a lot of ways. Global literacy rates are at an all-time high, life expectancy has been steadily increasing, and extreme poverty has been drastically reduced, over the past few decades. These are huge achievements.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about this whole robots taking our jobs thing?
Right.
That doesn't exactly scream bright future, does it?
It's a valid concern, definitely. And, Kurzweil doesn't shy away from that. He acknowledges that AI will disrupt the job market, for sure. But he also reminds us that, this isn't a new phenomenon. Think about the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
When machines started replacing a lot of agricultural jobs, people thought the world was ending.
Right.
And yet new industries emerged, creating jobs that, those farmers could have never even imagined.
Okay, so you're saying it's not about AI taking jobs, but about AI changing the types of jobs that exist.
Exactly. Think about the app economy.
Right.
Didn't even exist 15 years ago. And now it's this massive industry employing millions of people worldwide.
Yeah.
AI has the potential to create entirely new sectors, job categories that we can't even fathom yet.
So the key is to be adaptable, to learn new skills, embrace these changes as they come.
Exactly, yeah. And this is where Kurzweil really emphasizes the need for a strong social safety net.
Okay, so things like expanded education, retraining programs, maybe even a universal basic income.
Exactly. As technology creates more abundance, we really need to make sure that everyone benefits, not just a select few.
Okay, so maybe instead of fearing the singularity, we should be thinking about how to prepare for it, how to harness its power for good.
I think that's the right approach, definitely. Kurzweil's a big believer in our ability to steer AI in a positive direction.
And one of the most, I don't know about you, but one of the most mind-blowing predictions he makes is this idea that AI, biotechnology, and nanotechnology are all going to converge in the next few decades.
It's true, yeah. He believes that this convergence is going to lead to some truly revolutionary advances, especially in healthcare.
Okay.
Imagine a world where we can reprogram our biology to live longer, healthier lives.
Okay, now we're talking reprogramming our biology. How is that even possible?
Well, nanotechnology plays a big role here. Imagine tiny robots, nanobots, operating at the cellular level.
Like little microscopic mechanics
Yeah.
fixing our bodies from the inside out.
Exactly, yeah. These nanobots could theoretically clear out clogged arteries, attack cancer cells, even repair damage at the DNA level.
So we're talking about a future where we could potentially reverse aging.
It might sound far-fetched, but the science is advancing rapidly.
Wow.
Kurzweil actually points to the exponential progress being made in things like genetic engineering, molecular biology, as evidence that these seemingly impossible feats, they could be within our reach.
Okay, I'll admit it's a little hard to wrap my head around living for hundreds of years.
Sure.
But what about now? What kind of impact will AI have on healthcare in the more immediate future?
Well, even without achieving immortality, AI is already transforming healthcare in some really incredible ways.
Okay.
We have AI-powered diagnostic tools that are helping doctors identify diseases earlier and just more accurately than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing personalized medicine, where treatments are tailored to an individual's unique genetic makeup.
That's incredible. It's like we're moving from this one-size-fits-all approach to healthcare to something truly personalized.
Exactly, yeah. And, this is just the beginning. As AI continues to evolve, we can expect to see even more, remarkable breakthroughs in our ability to prevent, treat, and even cure diseases that we just, struggle with today.
So it sounds like Kurzweil is incredibly optimistic about the future of AI and its potential to really improve our lives.
He is, yeah. But, and this is important, he's not naive to the potential downsides. He acknowledges that with any powerful technology, there are inherent risks.
Right, like that whole super intelligent AI turning against us thing that everyone's worried about. What does he say about that?
He doesn't dismiss those concerns at all. He talks about the dangers of things like autonomous weapons systems falling into the wrong hands or bioengineered pandemics that could quickly spiral out of control.
Okay.
He even mentions, and this one's a bit out there, the gray goo scenario.
Gray goo. Okay, you have to tell me more about this one.
Okay, so picture this. Imagine self-replicating nanobots.
Okay.
Designed with good intentions, maybe to, clean up pollution or something.
Okay.
But then something goes wrong, and they start replicating uncontrollably, consuming everything in their path, basically turning the entire biosphere into this, mass of gray goo.
Okay, that's definitely nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
So how do we prevent these, dystopian scenarios from actually becoming our reality?
Well, Kurzweil stresses the importance of careful planning, ethical guidelines, international cooperation. He points to efforts like the Asilomar AI principles, which is basically this set of guidelines for responsible AI development as a step in the right direction.
So kind of like setting boundaries, setting some rules for AI from the get-go before it gets too powerful.
Exactly. Remember, AI is a tool, right?
Yeah.
It can be used for good or for bad. It's really up to us to guide its development in a way that ultimately benefits humanity.
Right. So we're talking about mitigating the risks of superintelligent AI, but then Kurzweil, he takes it a step further, right?
Yeah.
He's like, what if we don't just try to control AI, but we actually merge with it?
Right.
He calls this becoming extended humans, and he's talking about brain-computer interfaces, like Neuralink, right? That's making a lot of headlines these days.
Yeah, and it's interesting what he's saying because he sees this as kind of a natural progression. Humans have always used tools, right?
Right.
We go from the first stone tools to now our smartphones. We're always trying to find ways to extend our capabilities, and brain-computer interfaces.
Yeah.
That could be the next big leap,
Totally.
where we could directly tap into the power of AI. And imagine enhancing our intelligence, our creativity, problem-solving abilities. We could do so much more.
So instead of competing with this superintelligence, we would essentially become superintelligent.
Right, exactly.
Sign me up.
Mm-hmm.
But what would that even look like?
Right.
Would we still be human at that point?
And that's where it gets, really interesting kind of philosophical. Right. Kurzweil thinks that merging with AI, it would allow us to kind of transcend our biological limitations, that we would enter this whole new era of consciousness.
Right.
And he even speculates that, our minds could exist digitally backed up in the cloud.
Whoa. Okay, so are we talking about digital immortality here?
Yeah.
Because
It's a huge concept.
it's a huge concept.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't that bring up so many ethical questions?
Oh, well, absolutely.
Like, who gets to live forever? What
Yeah.
happens to the concept of death? What about, overpopulation and the impact on the planet if people are living potentially forever?
These are all incredibly important questions. And, Kurzweil acknowledges that, these are going to be big challenges, but he's optimistic that we can find solutions that work.
So where does this leave us? I mean, are we on the brink of this utopian future where humans and AI work together in perfect harmony and we're boosting each other's capabilities? Or are we headed towards some dystopian nightmare where we've got these super intelligent machines ruling and humans are obsolete?
That's the question, isn't it? And Kurzweil, he believes the future's not set in stone.
Okay.
That the singularity, it's kind of like a crossroads.
Okay.
We can embrace these opportunities, right? Use AI to solve the world's biggest problems, maybe create this future of abundance, where everybody benefits.
Right.
Or we can kind of let fear get the best of us, resist change, and risk being left behind.
It's a powerful message, for sure. We've covered a lot in this deep dive, from like the law of accelerating returns to talking about superintelligence, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Kurzweil really makes us think differently about the future.
Yeah, he does.
But he leaves us with this one, I think, pretty thought-provoking question. If you could back up your mind and exist digitally, would you choose to live forever? And what would that mean ethically? What would that mean for humanity?
That's something to think about, right?
Right. It really makes you think about what it means to be human in this age of crazy advanced technology.
It does.
That's what I love about these deep dives. They leave you with more to ponder than simple answers. So thanks for joining us on this journey into the singularity. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic. We'll keep diving deep, keep you ahead of the curve. See you then.